I'm going to start by saying, hi, readers. It's Lori. Welcome back to part 2 of my October most anticipated reads. This might be the strangest video I have made. I'm also just realizing I broke a nail, and that is driving me nuts. Okay, so I did the anticipated reads video last week. It ended up being way longer than I thought it was going to be when I looked at the timing. So I decided, as you saw from editing Lori before, decided to cut it apart so that you wouldn't have, a 50-minute video, which I don't know that you would have in the end, because when I edited it, it was a lot less than I thought it was going to be. However, then I ended up watching 60 Minutes on Sunday night. I found another nonfiction book that I was fascinated by. And then as I added it and I started looking at Goodreads, I found another one. I'm going to add these two, and then I'm going to give you back what I had filmed last week. Just bear with me. I just want you to have the biggest variety of October 2023 anticipated releases that you could possibly have. And so here they are. Sisters Under the Rising Sun by Heather Morris, I think. God, my writing is terrible. I'll correct it if that's wrong. She's a musician who puts her daughter on a ship to protect her as the Japanese army moves into the Pacific. And she stays behind to be with her husband and her parents. And a nun named Sister James, who's a Welsh Australian nurse, then begins to take care of this child. This is the woman who wrote The Tattooist of Auschwitz, which I have never read, but I think I own. But there are a lot of people who are really excited about this World War II historical fiction, dual perspective, I think, or dual timeline, maybe. Sounds really great. Also, The Christmas Appeal by Janice Hallett comes out on October 24th. Here's our Christmas reads coming forward already, right? This is a novella. I love Janice Hallett. Well, I say that. Have I read two or just one? But I loved The Appeal so much. And I love the premise of almost all of her books. But in this one, Jack and the Beanstalk is being performed by the Fairway Players. And of course, something goes awry. Petty rivalries, a possible asbestos-filled beanstalk, and players who are absent, and, well, of course, a dead body, because that's, what Janice Hallett does. So I can't wait. Again, it's a novella, but I think I want to own everything Janice Hallett has ever written, and I want the specific covers. If you know, you know. I want those. I don't want that other cover. The Sisterhood, The Secret History of Women at the CIA comes out. Sorry about this. I didn't get this one in October 17th. 3 generations of women who fought to become operatives in a male-dominated organization, for sure, and maintained a lot of agency secrets. They worked in Bonn, Germany, Geneva, and Moscow. I can't wait to read this. I have a connection to the CIA from previous years ago, and so it's really intriguing to me. Julia by Sandra Newman comes out October 24th. It is a feminist retelling of George Orwell's 1984. You had me at feminist retelling of George Orwell's 1984. So she's a mechanic in the fiction department at the Ministry of Truth, and she slips him a note. And if you know anything about 1984, you will really, really want to read this. So the one I discovered as I was looking on Goodreads for this other book, which I'm going to tell you about in a minute, just bear with me, comes out on October 17th. And this is called And Then There Was Light, Abraham Lincoln and the American Struggle by John Meacham. I love hearing about John Meacham's books. I have purchased at least one of his books for my son to read and have said, I'm going to read this when you're done. I haven't. But as you know, if you've been watching me for a while, Abraham Lincoln, kind of my thing, land of Lincoln. I was born there. We used to go to Springfield every year for field trips. This one, though, follows his life from when he was young to when he was killed. And it focuses on what life experiences really brought him to the place that he was as president of the United States, making decisions as he was doing based on what he felt like were the right things to do. In fact, there is a quote here and this one is actually recommended highly by Henry Louis Gates Jr., who I also really, really admire. It says, I'm just going to read this because I think it's great. Lincoln was at the pinnacle of American power when implacable successionists gave no quarter in a clash of visions bound up with money, race, identity, and faith. In him, we can see the possibilities of the presidency as well as its limitations. So then it goes on to say, he grew up in this Baptist community where he first went to school. That was an anti-slavery community. And in this community insisted that slavery was a moral evil. And they also sought, as he put it, to do right as God gave him to see the right. I just love that. Okay, this is incredible. This book tells the story of Lincoln from his birth on the Kentucky frontier in 1809 to his leadership during the Civil War, to his tragic assassination in 1865. His rise, his self-education, his loves, his bouts of depression, his political failures, his deepening faith, his persistent conviction that slavery must end. In a nation shaped by the courage of the enslaved of the era and by the brave witness of Black Americans, Lincoln's story illustrates the ways and means of politics in a democracy, the roots and durability of racism, and the capacity of conscience to shape events. I'm all in. So that comes out October 17th. And then the one that I turned on 60 Minutes to discover is Going Infinite, which is The Rise and Fall of a New Tycoon by Michael Lewis, who you might be familiar with. Michael Lewis has written a ton of stuff, including The Blind Side, which was later made into a movie, which is currently really back in controversy because of the fact that that family put that man in a conservatorship and he's trying to break free of all that. And you've probably seen that on the news, but that's not the point of this book. This book, Going Infinite, The Rise and Fall of a New Tycoon, is about Sam Bankman-Fried, who you may also be familiar with. And the way he described this in the 60-minute interview Michael Lewis did was incredible. The way he described the proclivities of Sam Bankman-Fried and how he just sort of created this cryptocurrency bankroll, essentially, and what they did and how they did it. And then, of course, how this all collapsed around him. And now he finds himself in prison and facing a host of charges and changes that will impact his life forever. It's fascinating to me because this guy, he seems like so, I don't know. I mean, he's not saying he didn't do these things and it's very, very interesting. One of the things Michael Lewis said in the interview was that he doesn't think that Sam Bankman-Fried could live without the internet. And if he went to prison, obviously he would not have access to internet. He said that he felt like if he had to choose and he had to live a life in a prison cell without the internet, that he would rather die than do that. That's quite interesting. Now, I am pretty connected to the internet, don't get me wrong. And I think all of us could say it would be difficult to live without the internet, but to say that he thinks he would literally die without it, that he couldn't face it, is just kind of incredible. But anyway, if you want to watch the interview, I'm sure it's streaming somewhere, repeated in various places. But he tells the story of the FTX spectacular collapse and the enigmatic founder at the center of this company, and how he was the world's youngest billionaire. And they called him Crypto's Gatsby. And he's just fascinating to me. Will I buy this one and read it? I don't know. Will I borrow it from the library and read it? Very possibly. Michael Lewis is a fascinating guy, even just to listen to. He makes every story that he tells like compelling, like you just listen to it like, holy cow. And I think you read it in that way too. That one comes out on October 3rd. So that one's first. Sam Bankman, Michael Lewis first, and then John Meacham Lincoln on the 17th. Thanks for watching, readers. I appreciate you so much for your patience, especially on this one. Let me know what really sparked your interest. Let me know which of these you might have pre-ordered. I imagine a lot of you have pre-ordered the Ashley Winstead and a couple of the other thrillers. Maybe you got the Amazon first reads like I did too, but I'm really curious to see which of these is going to rise to the top of your list of to be read this month. And as always, happy reading. Bye.